Welcome back to The ReidOut. I'm Charles Coleman Jr. in for Joy Reid tonight. Remember when the 2024 presidential election cycle felt like a next year issue? Well, that's about to end really, really fast. When the Iowa caucuses kick off the 2024 presidential election season in less than 3 weeks. The first contest in the Republican presidential nominating process is then followed by the January 23rd New Hampshire primary. Now, last night, Donald Trump appeared on Truth Social and accused his Republican primary rivals of trying to rig the Iowa caucuses, saying, quote, "The other side does cheat." This is further expanding his lies over election interference, and this comes even as the big lie itself is set to go on trial. There's still a yawning gap between Trump and his many Republican challengers. He leads by more than 50 points in the Real Clear Politics national average. But if you look at other polls, that gap closes, especially when you start zeroing in on Iowa. Trump still leads, but the numbers are slightly higher for Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley. And then when you turn and you look at New Hampshire, Haley is polling second there, and she trails Trump by 20 points. New Hampshire happens to actually be led by vocal Trump critic Governor Chris Sununu, who endorsed the former UN ambassador earlier this month. And now, Sununu has appeared in a new ad for his presidential candidate of choice. He doesn't mention Trump by name, but he did have this to say about his disruptive legacy. Take a listen.
She's a new generation of conservative leadership who can help leave behind the chaos and the drama of the past.
Joining me now is Democratic pollster and strategist Cornell Belcher and Kurt Bardella, Democratic strategist and contributor for the Los Angeles Times. I have got an all-star panel with me. Thank you guys for being here. Happy holidays to you both. What do you make of the fact that we are in a space, Cornell, where Donald Trump is now accusing his rivals on the right of rigging the election, or is this sort of not a surprise at all and should be expected?
Well, it should be expected because he traffics in grievance, right? He traffics in grievance. He lives in grievance. Grievance is his political capital. Although, I will say when you look at the polling data here, look, I don't usually care about the margins of difference between candidates. Like you're down 10 points, you're down 15 points. I don't care as a pollster because I've worked for candidates who've overcome double-digit margins. But when you look at the polling in early states, Trump is either at a majority support or close to a majority support. And so I don't care where you are. What I care about is how close you are to a majority. And if you look at the polling right now, he's awfully close to a majority in the two first states, which is a problem for the field of candidates, and particularly problematic for Haley if she in fact wants to continue this so-called surge. And she's actually sort of pulled back over the last couple of days, and as some reporting now, she's playing it smart. You're not going to overcome an incumbent sitting in front of you with a lead by playing it smart. She's going to have to contrast with him hard.
Cornell, just to follow up with you on that, is there any thought that by performing better in Iowa and or New Hampshire that might invigorate a new sort of set of life to either DeSantis or to Haley in their campaign? Or is that going to make it harder for them to raise money and continue to fight the fight against the presumptive nominee?
No, that's a really good question, and it's all about the money. And what you've seen, I think, is DeSantis pulling back, and some of the other candidates pulling back. Look, I think if Haley does well, I think the Trump money begins to rally around her, which is really important. And look, Iowa is important, but most of us forget that Iowa doesn't necessarily decide who wins it, especially in the primaries. Look, I remember Rick Santorum won Iowa, and most people have forgotten about that. But if she does well in the first two states, I think she becomes the alternative choice for Trump, and a lot of the money goes there.
Kurt, my friend, speaking of people who are pulling back, let's talk about everyone's favorite underdog. In like a lion and seemingly out like a lamb, we have Vivek Ramaswamy, who has now decided that he is not going to spend any more money on television ads. But yet today alone, he hosted 8 town halls in Iowa. I do not know how you do 8 town halls in a day, but apparently he does. What is this in terms of a sign? Have we seen the last of Ramaswamy's campaign? Is it on its last leg, or does he know something that we don't?
Well, I think it's been very clear from his posture, tone, tenor that this guy is going to stay in this race as long as he keeps getting attention. He loves the stage. This guy is about as egotistical and arrogant and narcissist as you're going to find, and he loves the attention. He loves the spectacle of it all. He's not going to spend any money anymore on that because it's just good money after bad. He's smart enough to know that, but it still means he wants to be in that field, in the position. And frankly, I think that part of his game is to stay in there so that he can take shots at the other candidates and do Donald Trump's dirty work for him. He's almost the Donald Trump surrogate on stage during these debates. A lot of the times he carries all the water for Trump and does a lot of nasty attacking against candidates like Nikki Haley we've seen in more recent debates. And I think that, his end game is to try to score enough points with Trump by staying in it, fighting in a way that Trump really endorses and likes to see, and hopefully find himself in the Trump cabinet if that were to come to pass.
Kurt, staying with you, speaking of fighting and Nikki Haley, we've seen the identity politics ramped up around the different attacks on Nikki Haley. Donald Trump referring to her in a very sexist way, calling her a bird brain. And then Vivek Ramaswamy, of all people, noting that her gender card shtick is pathetic. In a space where we know that the notion of identity politics, meaning on the right, is somewhat of a radioactive term, is this a narrative that Nikki Haley has to be concerned about as she continues to try and climb in the polls?
I mean, I think that when you're trying to be the standard bearer of a party that is built upon white nationalism, sexism, misogyny, it really shouldn't shock you when you become the target of that type of rhetoric and attack lines, because that's your party. Those are the voters that you are actively trying to court to get to vote for you. These are the same voters who believe that it's okay to take a women's right to choose away, that it's okay for old white men to make decisions about your health care for you. It's the same type of things that we saw going after Hillary Clinton and the misogyny and sexism she was targeted from Republicans. Why Nikki Haley would think that she would be exempt from that is beyond me. She shouldn't. She should expect this. That's what's going to happen. And especially when you're running against people like Donald Trump, the ringleader of this type of attack, and that nastiness and ugliness and the way that it is overrun the Republican Party and replaced what used to be a party that talked more about conservatism and policy and has then been completely run over by these personality type, cult personality attacks. Like, yeah, that's par for the course. And that's the party you're trying to run, Nikki Haley. And good luck with that.
Cornell, last question to you. Donald Trump is about to go on trial at some point during next year. The campaign is heating up on both sides. President Biden right now is not polling well. The minute that these caucuses start, it seems like, and they get going, Donald Trump's going to go on trial, and presumably the entire news cycle the air is going to be sucked out. Does that hurt Biden more in terms of his ability to break through and do something about his poll numbers, or does it hurt Donald Trump in the sense that he's the presumptive nominee and he's also facing criminal indictments out the wazoo?
Well, I know I only have 30 seconds for this answer. One, I want to say there was a really good answer by my counterpart, my friend on the other side. It was a great answer. And no, it does not hurt President Biden for his opponent to be constantly on television under trial and threat of going to prison. No, that does not hurt him.
Two of the biggest brains I knew, and I knew we could get it done on this segment. Thank you both, Cornell Belcher and Kurt Bardella.